This is the brand new PXW FX9. So this is our brand new camera from Sony. It is a brand new full frame 6K sensor. So the full frame sensor can operate in both full frame mode and Super 35. It's using our new Exmor R technology. So that's a backlit sensor which improves sensitivity and dynamic range. So we're getting about 15 plus stops of dynamic range with this new camera.
Who are you seeing it mainly for? Like, would you use this on a dock? Are you talking features, short films? What would be the main customer for this camera?
Yes.
All the above.
Yeah, so, I mean, when the FS7 series came out, we got asked that same question, and we kind of pigeonholed it into one area, but then we found out that the camera was so amazing, it just ended up everywhere. So I would imagine we're going to get even more expansion with this model because there's so many new features on the camera.
Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Jason Godbey. I'm a filmmaker and content creator based in New York City. First announced in late 2019, the Sony FX9 is a full-fledged, full-frame, fully loaded cinema camera, and it sits on top of the Sony Cinema line as the big brother to the FX6 and the FX3. But is it still worth it in 2025? Let's take a look. The top and side handles make it easy to handhold this camera or use it as a shoulder mount, but you'll definitely feel its weight if you're shooting for long periods of time. For me, this is a lot of camera. I'm used to being able to pick up a camera and go, but I feel like the FX9 really needs support. I shot handheld with it because I wanted to see how long I could last, but I really think this would be a lot easier with an easy rig. The FX9 has a very similar form factor to its predecessor, the FS7. There are a number of buttons for functions like ISO, white balance, gain, iris, etc., as well as controls to navigate the menu systems. There are also programmable buttons that you can assign for different functions. The screen on the FX9 is a decent size and the display is customizable. There's also focus peaking and zebra controls located right on the screen, which I used quite a bit. There's also an eyepiece that will be helpful in bright sunlight. Oh boy, there is not a sigh deep enough to express my feelings for the FX9's menu. It's complicated to say the least. I watched multiple tutorials on this camera, and I still had a hard time navigating this thing. I only had a couple of days with the camera, but I feel like it would take months for me to really learn the menus. I think the customizable buttons would help tremendously in avoiding having to dive into the menu system, but I didn't really get a chance to use them. The FX9 shoots a wide selection of frame rates, 23.98, 59.94, as well as 24 frames per second and 50 frames per second, all in 10-bit color. It shoots in XVAC in 422 with MPEG and Proxy Media in 1080 and 4K. The selection varies depending on whether you're shooting in 2K or 4K, SDR or HDR mode. The variety of frame rates and codecs is a huge advantage and one of the reasons why this camera is so versatile. The camera shoots in S-Log and Cine-EI mode, and there's a LUT in the monitor that you can apply to add contrast, which will help you expose properly. I mainly use the S-Cinetone profile, and I have to say, I'm really starting to be a fan of Sony Color. The colors out of the FX9 look pretty great straight out of camera, and I thought this S-Cinetone looked even better than in the FX3. The autofocus in the FX9 is as good as in the FX3. It's remarkable how well it tracks faces, and the Sony system is second to none in my opinion. Since I was running and gunning with this camera, I really relied on the autofocus quite a bit, and it delivered every time. The audio is super clean out of the FX9. You have two XLR inputs, plus a built-in mic with 4 channels of audio. You could use this as your main camera, record the audio straight in the camera, and not have to worry about syncing in post. One of the strengths of the FX9 are the built-in neutral density filters. It's the best ND system I've seen in any camera. You can set it to different levels. It also has an auto feature that I found to be incredibly accurate. It's interesting that this camera functions like a cinema camera and also like a camcorder. You can control every single aspect manually, but you can also go full auto, which is not something you see in a lot of cinema cameras. It's got the option of gain versus ISO. I prefer using ISO, but I could see how a gain switch could be a really good shortcut option if you're running and gunning. All of these features make the camera extremely versatile. As I've used full frame cameras more and more, I really appreciate the image quality. It's outstanding, and the 6K sensor downsampled to 4K just looks amazing. One area where this camera loses points for me is in its usability. Like a lot of Sony cameras, I didn't find it to be all that user-friendly. In fact, it seems like Sony is going out of their way to make their cameras more complicated. For instance, I don't know why they do this, but they use odd terms for things. Frame rate is called frequency in the menu, and to watch playback, the button is named thumbnail. Why? I don't know. It's like they're trying to confuse us. This may not be a problem if you're a Sony shooter and you've used cameras like the FS7, but if you're coming from another system, you'll need time to learn this one and really wrap your head around these changes. So how does this camera compare to its little brothers, the FX6 and the FX3? I haven't had a chance to use the FX6, which is the most popular camera in the line. I reviewed the FX3, which is by far my favorite Sony camera, and for me, that's the camera I would buy. The FX3 doesn't have all the features of the FX9, and I would really miss things like the built-in ND, but you can buy two FX3s with extras for less than the price of one FX9. The advantages of the FX9 over a camera like the 3 are things you need on a professional set, like the ability to send and receive timecode and the extra audio channels. There's also an extension unit you can buy that will send out RAW to an external recorder. It's a lot more camera that's going to work better for you on bigger jobs. So who's this camera for? This camera is built for professionals. You can use it as a solo operator like I did, but I feel like it would be better with a crew. It's great for documentary or narrative filmmaking. You could also use it as an event camera or for ENG type work. It's also ideal for broadcasting and multi-camera shoots. Again, this is a lot of camera. It's probably too much camera for some filmmakers. It's also really expensive. It's not $75,000 Alexa expensive, but it's not cheap. For most people, this is going to be a rental. If you're working on a big project, this could certainly be a cheaper alternative to rent than an Alexa or a Red. Only you can know if the Sony FX9 is right for you, but with amazing image quality and versatility that can be used on a wide array of filmmaking and media projects, this camera is still top of the line. Thanks for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
This is the BTRP Media Network.